More reminiscing. Got it.
Just give it a minute, make sure people are jumping in.
No, I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you how it went down. I love it. I get seasonal depression. So when it gets dark too early,
I
I'm really
agree.
upset.
We should start a support group.
All right, I think we're good.
I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Bogota Board of Education for March 15, 2022 to order. Everybody, please stand and salute the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and attend the meetings of the public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Bogota Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted in the Bogota Borough Hall, communicated by letter to the record, filed with the clerk of the Borough of Bogota, and posted on the Bogota Board of Education website. Mr. Irfan, may you please call the roll?
Mrs. Alvarez,
Present.
Mr. Alvarez,
Present.
Mr. Chavez,
Here.
Mrs. Cruz,
Present.
Mrs. Coles absent, Mrs. Oliva,
Present.
Mr. Ortega absent, Ms. Rackett absent, Mr. Miranda.
Present.
We have the quorum.
For the record, Mrs. Rocket and Mr. Ortega reached out to me that they will not be able to make it due to conflict at work. Also present are Superintendent Damian Kennedy, Board Attorney William Sukis, School Business Administrator, Board Secretary Irfan Efsil, and Assistant Board Secretary Elizabeth Ruiz. I'd like to open the floor to hearing of citizens on agenda items only. May I have a motion on here's citizens' remarks?
Olivo.
May I have a second?
Chavez.
Is there any board discussion? All in favor? If there's any member of the public who would like to address agenda items only, please state your name and address, and you only have 5 minutes. I remind you, it's on agenda items only. Mr. Kennedy,
I don't see anyone online.
anyone in our public that would like to speak? May I have a motion to close citizen remarks?
Motion Chavez?
Before I get a second, nothing, Mr. Kennedy?
Nothing.
May I have a second?
Olivo.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll move to our superstar superintendent, Damian Kennedy's reports, please.
So we held our town hall meeting last week with Bogota Police Department. I believe it was well received. Bogota PD will be going to the schools in the upcoming weeks to discuss some of the topics that we discussed at the town hall meeting. Some of the takeaways from that town hall meeting that I met with my administration team is to increase that school communication regarding the process and follow up with parents and to our students and keeping the parents more in the loop, that when we are communicating with their kids and regarding the process, so that they have more of an understanding of the process of HIB, what's the difference between HIB and conflict and things like that. Sometimes the word bullying gets thrown out there, and it's just sometimes it's two kids disagreeing about something. So we're working with everyone to get that understanding more communicated. I'll also ask the schools to start focusing on more presentations and guest speakers. The last 2 years, we really have stayed away from that. No one would be willing to even come to the schools, but now it seems that we're opening up, and I know we're going to have some things scheduled for April and May to give the kids some in-person presentations where it's presented this information. I got an addendum tonight with the preliminary budget that must be approved by the county. Also on the addendum are the spring coaches that had to be filled after we had some departures. Also, good luck to our juniors. They're in the middle of their New Jersey graduation proficiency assessment. It's 3 days of ELA and 2 of math, so they got done with ELA day 2 today. So we're hoping for good results from them. They're the first ones to be taking testing to graduate. This will be one of the requirements. They'll still have other requirements to graduate, but in the last 2 years, the juniors have not had a lot of opportunities to take standardized tests and SATs and things like that. So we're hopeful that they are putting the effort in. And then finally, last week, there were some questions regarding lunch. So I just wanted to address some of those. We did find out that students can purchase an entree only, whether it's an extra slice of pizza, an extra burger, for $2.65. Also, leftovers are recorded daily, and they try to repurpose them for the next day unless they feel that the quality is diminished. So then they will discard it. But what they are trying to do is, as we get through September and October, they have a better idea that if they serve spaghetti and meatballs, how many students are going to ask for it. So they said that they get pretty close each day. Also, proportion sizes are similar across the districts because it's slightly bigger for older kids. So they don't make this smaller for the younger grades, like a chicken patty. They're not cutting it because it's very, I saw the percentages, it's slightly bigger, but more fruits and vegetables are always encouraged. So also I want to push it out there, and I'm going to send it out to the community, but Pomptonia is now on Instagram, and they are posting daily lunch specials. They're doing flavors around the world. I think they're doing bangers and mash on Thursday, which I might have to check out. We'll see if they're real potatoes, but I will have my doubts. So we are in communication with the food service, and they have expressed some ideas, a panini maker, a steamer to get more quality and freshness. So we will continue to meet with them and try and improve, but our numbers we're seeing, we are operating in we are making money this year on the food service. I think we're close to a profit for the district, close to $100,000. All that money gets put right back into refrigerators and things like that. So we'll continue working with them. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. I'm not sure to do this now or later, but Mr. Kennedy, remind me to discuss uniforms, and I guess under new business or old business, right? Moving on, the approval of minutes for the open session of regular meeting of the board held on February 15th and the closed session meeting board held on February 15th. 4.2 and 4.3, are there any comments or corrections, board?
None.
Is there a motion to approve these minutes?
Olivo?
Thank you. A second.
Second, Idalia.
Mr. Irfan, may you roll call, please?
Mrs. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Chavez,
Yes.
Mrs. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Olivo,
Yes.
Mr. Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, we might be missing some, let me just make sure. Oh, yes, I need a motion to approve the minutes of February 8th, public meeting. Is there any correction or or discussion on the minutes? So I said February 15th, open and close, I missed on the 8th. May I have a motion?
Motion Chavez?
I have a second.
Olivo?
I'll ask Ed just in case. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call, Mr. Irfan, I'm sorry.
Mrs. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Chavez,
Yes.
Mrs. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Olivo,
Yes.
Mr. Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. Section 4.4, approval of consent agenda items. Let me just make sure. Approval of professional conference under education. No, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. Under policy. Approval of consent agenda under policy. Is there a motion to approve resolution 4.4?
So 5.4, so 4.4 is really the one.
Oh, that's the one we did. That's right. So it's 4.4 is 4.1, what is it?
So it's 4.1 through 4.3. So that's
Yep.
approval of all that, so we could do it.
Through
this-
4, okay, through 4.3. You see it on the agenda? I know it's broken up. We're getting
Oh.
used to this. Do I have approval on the resolutions? 4.4, do I have a motion? Do
Olivo,
I have a second?
Chavez?
Any discussion? All in favor, Mr. Irfan, roll call.
Mrs. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Chavez,
Yes.
Mrs. Cruz,
yes.
Mrs. Olivo,
Yes.
Mr. Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Moving to the section 5.1, second reading and adoption of policies. Is there any motion to approve resolution 5.1?
Motion Cruz,
Is there a second?
Second Italia.
Is there any board discussion on this resolution? May I have a roll call, Mr. Irfan?
Mrs. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Chavez,
Yes.
Mrs. Cruz,
yes.
Mrs. Olivo,
Yes.
Mr. Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Moving to resolutions under 6, education. It's resolution 6.1 through 6.10. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion, Chavez?
Is there a second?
Olivo,
Any board discussion on the resolutions, 6.1 through 6.10? Roll call, Mr. Irfan.
Mrs. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Chavez,
Yes.
Mrs. Cruz,
yes.
Mrs. Olivo,
Yes.
Mr. Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Moving on to section 7 for resolution 7.1 through 7.4. I'm sorry. 6.11, I'm sorry. Moving on to resolution 6.11, approval of consent agenda items. Is there a motion to approve resolution 6.11?
Motion Italia.
Is there a second?
Chavez?
Any comments from the board on this resolution?
I see, I think we got about it, but I think we should just be reading 6.11, it's 6.1 through 6.10, that's where we can bracket that, that's the only way we can do is making that resolution. So 6.11 is really approving the resolution for 6.11 is approving 6.1 through 6.10.
I'd rather do 6.1 through 6.10 so that the public and the board can see them individually. At least understand what they're voting for. Not that the resolution was lost within a group. Do I have a second? I apologize. Did I get a motion? On
Yes.
6.11 and a second?
Mhm.
Who was that second?
Chavez.
Is there any board discussion on this resolution? May I have a roll call, Mr. Irfan?
Mrs. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Chavez,
Yes.
Mrs. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Olivo,
Yes.
Mr. Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Moving on to section 7 under personnel, resolution 7.1 through 7.4. Am I missing any? I don't think so. Is there a motion to approve these resolutions?
Motion Italia.
Do I have a second?
Trina, Olivo,
Is there any comment from the board on these resolutions, 7.1 through 7.4?
Yes, I abstain from 7.4 and 7.7.
Mr. Alvarez abstains from, say that again, 7.4?
And 7.7.
We might have jumped the gun, but we'll get to 7.4. Mr. Irfan, may I get a roll call?
Mrs. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Chavez,
Yes.
Mrs. Cruz,
yes.
Mrs. Olivo,
Yes.
Mr. Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Let me make sure I get this one right. We're moving on to resolution 7.5, approval of consent agenda items. Is there, let me make sure, is there a approval on a motion to approve resolution 7.5? I have a motion.
Just 7.5.
That's what I see here. I want to make sure I get this right. Yeah, it's 7.5.
So what's through 7.9? I'm sorry,
So it's gonna be 7.6 through 7.8.
you're separating it.
That's why I broke it down.
Those items were not, 7.6 through 7.8 weren't on the work session agenda, which is why they've got to be bundled separately.
All right, I have no questions.
Sure.
Yeah.
Can I have a motion?
Olivo.
May I have a second? Olivo. Any comments? Any comments on the resolutions?
Is this where I abstain from?
Yes.
7
this-
Abstain
Mr.
from
Alvarez,
7.4.
yes. Mr. Irfan, roll call, please.
Mrs. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Alvarez,
Yes.
No.
No, sorry, abstain. Abstain from 7.4.
Did you say 7.7 or 7.5?
He said
So,
and 7.
So you gotta wait on 7.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Chavez,
Yes.
Mrs. Cruz,
Yes,
Mrs. Olivo,
yes.
Mr. Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Resolutions, moving on to resolution 7.6 through 7.8. Is there a motion to approve resolution 7.6 through 7.8?
Motion Olivo?
May I have a second?
Chavez.
Is there any comment from the board on on resolution 7.6 through 7.8?
Yes, I abstained from 7.7.
Thank you, Mr. Alvarez. Please take a roll call, Mr. Irfan.
Mrs. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Alvarez,
Abstain.
Mr. Chavez,
Yes.
Mrs. Cruz,
Yes.
You can
Mrs.
abstain
Olivo?
as to 7.7, I'm sorry for, but you can vote on the others in the
Okay.
group, okay? If you want to clarify your vote,
Yeah.
So yes to the others, and I abstained from 7.7.
good.
Thank you.
So we'll say yes. Mr. Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right. Moving on to resolution 7.9, approval of agenda items. Is there a motion to approve resolution 7.9?
Motion Idalia.
Thank you, Dahlia. A second?
Second
Chavez?
Cruz?
Cruz. Any comments from any board members on resolution 7.9?
I apologize because I'm not, I guess you're asking it to be, it approves resolution 7.6 through 7.8, and didn't we already vote 7.6, I'm getting confused. Yeah,
You did, and I think it's a function of the software. Mr. Kennedy can probably describe it a little bit more as far as why this happens, but it basically bundles them all into a consent agenda, and the way that the software works out, it just happens to pump out the resolution on the consent agenda. We're going to work out a
Yeah.
protocol that might
Okay.
streamline.
because
the
I'm
whole
just wondering
operation.
if, like, agenda item 7.9 is what we read, because that will be approving 7.6 through 7.8.
Right, I got you.
That's how, like, they told us we had to do it because we couldn't bracket it like we used to.
So it would be a motion to approve, for example, resolution 7.9, which is the
Approval of
consent agenda
Approval of
of the previous
7.6 to
6
yes.
through 8.
Right.
Okay, that sounds fine. I think
So
we can do
is
that.
that
going
what we're gonna
forward.
do moving
So,
forward?
yeah, going forward.
Going
is
forward.
instead
For
of-
tonight, let's just.
I agree with
continue
you.
this.
gonna
You
get-
see,
you're
I've
gonna-
never been this.
You're gonna be
long.
thirsty by the end of this
I am
confusion.
thirsty.
I
All
mean,
right,
I
so
get
can
it,
we?
It makes sense, but it's just the way that we were voting twice then. on
Yes,
the- on the
basically,
same thing.
in essence, yep.
Yeah, we.
No, the abstention is of record in that one.
It's on the record. Okay,
Okay.
so do we move on a motion to resolution 7.9, just to finish?
Mhm.
Okay, which approves 7.6
Wait.
through 7.8.
Mrs. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Chavez,
Yes.
Mrs. Cruz,
Yes,
Mrs. Olivo,
yes.
Mr. Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Moving on to finance, 8.1, resolutions 8.1 through 8.10. Do I have a motion?
Motion
Chavez.
Olivo?
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. Any discussion from the board on resolutions 8.1 through 8.10? Roll call, Mr. Irfan. Thank you.
Mrs. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Chavez,
Yes.
Mrs. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Olivo,
Yes.
Mr. Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Moving on to resolutions 8.11 through 8.13. Is there a motion to approve resolutions 8.11 through 8.13?
Motion Idalia.
Is there a second?
Alvarez.
Thank you. Is there any discussion from the board on 8.11 through 8.13? Roll call, Mr. Irfan.
Mrs. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Chavez,
Yes.
Mrs. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Olivo,
Yes.
Mr. Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Moving on to resolutions 8.14, approval of agenda items. I make sure, which is 8.1 through 8.3. Okay?
Yeah,
We're
that's
just
it
gonna,
again.
we'll work it out for the next.
Yeah,
meeting.
it's just.
Okay, we have a motion,
Olivo.
a second. Any discussion? Mr. Irfan?
Mrs. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Chavez,
Yes.
Mrs. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Olivo,
Yes.
Mr. Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Moving on to buildings and grounds. Let me just make sure this is accurate. Resolution 9.1 in the buildings and grounds section, there appears to be nothing at this time, so we'll move to 10. Moving on to the addendum portion of the agenda, resolution 10.1 through 10.3. I'm assuming all board members reviewed the addendum.
Yes.
It's also for the public. It's located on page 1618. Do I have a motion?
Motion Idalia.
Okay, so I'm gonna take Olivo and Chavez. Do I have a set, I mean, I already did that. Any board discussion on the resolution? On the addendum? May I have a roll call, Mr. Irfan?
Mrs. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Chavez,
Yes.
Mrs. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. Olivo,
Yes.
Mr. Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Next on the agenda is item 11.1. Let me see, committee report. So just before we go into that, for those who are paying attention, I'm sure you've heard by now, we've adopted a new software that is supposed to allow more transparency. So anytime it's updated by an administrative staff of the board of Education, we are notified immediately. So there never could be a last minute thing without any one board member being able to question. And even better, when it's published, the public is able to view it as well. Something that when you're not online, I'm not sure how it's being fed. I will ask that question. Maybe Kennedy, you can clarify. But prior to, most people have to go to a website. So now there's other additional methods of you being able to see this in what they call like almost real time. So we're getting used to it. It's very different, but just to let everyone know. So moving on to committee reports. Anyone have any committee reports?
Yeah, policy, we've met once and we're meeting again later this week. There's not too much to report on, but I also want to say that the Bogota Board of Ed website has all the policies listed, all their definitions in full. So I just encourage families, students, anyone in the community can go to this website anytime they want and they can read any and all of the policies. If you still have questions, you could reach out to the Board of Ed office or come to a Board of Ed meeting, but they're there for anyone to look at. And that's it. Thanks.
Anyone else?
Yes, Finance Committee got together yesterday. We went through the numbers that we are sending to Mr. Murphy. I really want to thank Irfan for doing a phenomenal job with the numbers and being on top of everything. And we came to an agreement and it looks like everything's good to move forward.
Thank you. Anyone else? So just a second on Susan, knowledge is power. And it is imperative that our community start to empower themselves and their children. And that's done through understanding what policies are in place. We recently had what would you call it? A town hall. It was almost a seminar, if you ask me, but it was a town hall discussion between the Board of Education, meaning superintendent, the police department, There was a council member here as well, I believe Commissioner. And some board, I think almost all board members attended. I think there was missing a few, but more to the public, and then some sat up here to avoid any quorum issues. With that being said, there was a lot of questions that came up, and I think that sometimes our neighbors, because we can't call them residents, we aren't any different, our actual neighbors come to us seeking answers. And what I need you all to understand is that when we take an oath to sit up here, I'm sure we all run with a passion to change everything, or a passion to enhance the communication. And when we get up here, we really find out fairly quick. And I think some of you up here have pulled your hairs, and we can't say as much as we should, as much as we could, we should, and we want to, maybe passionately. And then we find, we later on learn through training, through advice from legal, that we have our hands tied sometimes in what we want to offer you individually. And I hear it from everybody, so I know it's real. So I think that if there's anything we can offer the public and our neighbors, at the end of the day, you are our neighbors. When we get out of these seats, we're gonna still be neighbors. Is knowledge is power. Learn the policies, learn the rules and regulation, teach them to your children. And a lot of people, some people sat up here and said, I would love my children to know, not only from the police department, but from the school district, what are their rights? And you know what? Those policies are their rights. Those policies are our rights. Learn them. Indulge yourself in that knowledge, because maybe you're going to sit up here and do a better job than us. And it's funny because when we sit up here, I believe, speaking for myself, I realize there's a lot to learn. So I encourage the public to learn. And I think it was an amazing first start for the town hall. You would agree, for those who attended? I personally, and I have to speak on myself, I am going to encourage, because that's all I can do is encourage. I can't tell people what to do. I will encourage that to continue. I will almost, in this case, demand the public to demand those things from our community, so that we can get more in tune with our children, with the troubles, what is happening in our school district, and so on and so forth. On Mr. Chavez, I just want to make a personal comment on myself, and maybe we did see the budget. We are learning and understanding that it's hard, it's difficult, and why not be honest and say it, right? I'm sure there's people who have sat in different positions in life, who have made decisions. We are digging deep, and we're trying. We know we have to approve the budget, because for what I understand and what I know, it was issued to us by the state, some of the numbers almost last minute. So we're kind of rushing to get it to the county. Is that correct, my statement?
Yes.
We have to rush to the county. What I will promise this community is that we understand the hardship that we're going through, and we may be facing as a country, as a global endemic in many things. And we're going to dig deep, at least the finance department, to see how we can try to alleviate some of this impact. We rely on our business administrator and the professionals to guide us through the process. I really wish we did not have to look or consider an increase in anybody's pockets in our residents here in Bogota, but sometimes it's like, in order to keep the service at top tier, you almost always have to raise, right? Because it seems, and correct me if I'm wrong, the state tends to give us money for a year or two on a program, and then the money goes away. What happens? Now you've provided our community a service, and you almost have to tell them 2 years later, you no longer get it. And it almost seems like the school and the taxpayers have to pick up the piggyback from there on. So we have to consider it. And I think I want to say, for my first time sitting on a finance board with Chairman Jose Chavez, Mr. Alvarez, and Mrs. Ruckett, they asked a lot of questions, and they're trying to find ways to figure this out. And I myself, I think I did as well. And I understood that there was more pain in the discussion than just say, yeah, we're good. So just know that we're working for you. And for at least those who were sitting there, I can attest to that. We're working really hard and we're really trying to figure this out. So just bear with us and hopefully we have better news, but right now it's good news. And the good news is we're at a very minimal increase. We're keeping the tier service that has been given to this point, the extra services. Is that somewhat accurate? Does that sum it up? Okay. Hearing of the public. just-
No. You didn't go through old business yet.
Just finished committee.
Let me go
reports.
back here. I'm going, I lost my, reports. Okay, next on the agenda, item 12.1. Is there any old business for the board would like to discuss? I do. I don't want to be quiet today. It's part of working, right? Mr. Kennedy, I would love to know where we're at. I understand that a company might have gone, closed down, for better words. And uniform, where are we with the uniform vendor? Should we start talking about going out for RFP? Is that the process, I assume?
Is that, we did talk about that, correct, Arthur?
Yeah, we can do the RFP as we did for the after-school care.
Okay, so we don't have to wait to July. I'd rather, with everything that's happening in the world, and from the business I come from, I know what's happening. It hurts, the people's pockets, it's food. I want to make sure that people gear up and get ready. I would love to see what it's going to cost. What are we going to do? Let's solidify this discussion and move it forward. Let's not wait till the last minute.
And-
I would love if the board
And
could
to be
support.
clear, the vendor you're speaking of is for our elementary school level, not the high school level. right
It's
now.
elementary and middle, right?
He was just elementary, I believe.
He was just elementary.
So yes, I think we have to have that. I also have my survey results and I planned on having a meeting with those parents that were interested in giving some more feedback. So I hope to have that done in the next couple of weeks, just get some more feedback, but we could see what else is out there and what is best for our students and community.
Thank you.
Would it be, I've heard some board members, I've heard some residents discuss a patch. Maybe as another alternative. I don't know what that will do or if it's a negative or a positive, but as every discussion, let's open up and to see what the real discussion is. And if it's just an RFP going out to bid and try to get the best offer today, because I'm sure it's very difficult for any business to stay open with the turmoil, maybe it's an opportunity for us.
Yeah,
that
we can
okay?
talk it up.
So what are we doing next? Are we going out for RFP soon? Are we waiting on something? Let's close this chapter.
Yeah, we'll go out as soon as we can.
Do we have to vote to go out for RFP?
I don't believe so.
No, it's just a request? Perfect, that's even easier. Next on the agenda is new business, 13.1. Is there any new business the board would like to discuss?
No.
Perfect. I'd like to open the floor to hearing of citizen remarks on issues pertaining to operation of their school, 14.1. Is there a motion to open
Motion,
hearing of
Chavez.
citizens? Is there a second?
Olivo?
Any board discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
If there's any thank you. If there's any member of the public who would like to address the board, speaker, please state your name and address. You have 5 minutes.
No.
We got one.
This is your.
Yep.
Hi.
Hold, he's gonna pass.
My name is Karen Wright Moore. I am new to Bogota.
Welcome.
Thank you. I live at 201 Leonia Avenue. If any of you know the old Minervini home or family, we purchased that home and we have a 5-year-old starting kindergarten, hopefully at STEAM. He's already registered and he's being tutored. And so I just wanted to come and see the board, let you see my face. We'll definitely be involved and engaged in the community. I'm sure his parents will be a part of the PTO, but I really need to understand how to join the PTO. And I would imagine I could go to some of the websites that you guys have mentioned, but I just wanted to say thanks for having me and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Moore. Right, Moore, is that correct? Thank you. And welcome to our beautiful small town.
Carmel?
Carmel.
Hi, yes, good evening, everybody. I'm Carmel Burney, 162 East Fort Lee Road. Question, has the next year's calendar been clarified yet? Are we starting after Labor Day or before Labor Day? Has that been decided yet?
So I have a calendar committee meeting tomorrow. We'll be on the April 12th, but as of right now, we will be starting after Labor Day.
Okay, great, thank you.
You made a lot of people smile.
Well, the people have spoken. Gary?
Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, Sherry Solomov, 350 Larch Ave.
Wait, I lost you. You back? Can you hear me?
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Yes. It's Sherry Solomov, 350 Larch Ave. I think I heard that woman mention that her 5-year-old is going to be joining Steen. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, hi, ma'am. My name is Sherry Solomov. I'm the president of the PTO. Feel free to email me at any time at sherry.solomov. I can spell that for you. I'm sure Frank or one of the lovely board members can.
I have her email, so I can email her back.
Great. Well, we'd love to have, you talk to us a little further about that. All volunteers, we welcome with open arms, and thank you for any interest in volunteering. I just wanted to quickly just add that I thought that the seminar presentation by the PD Board of Ed regarding bullying was really, really helpful. I think the informal open chat is, welcoming and just kind of lets our guard down and speak as neighbors and friends and parents that just care about our kids a lot. So I really hope, as Frank said, Mr. Miranda said before, that we encourage it to continue. Any help you need from any residents, I will openly volunteer to help with anything to help that continue on. So thank you guys so much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Anyone else, Mr. Kennedy?
That is it.
That's all? Sure?
No one else here.
It saddens me when I see 10 people and we had all these answers from them, from all the questions on our recent bullying town hall. You want to have all the questions and then they just don't show up. So it's why we prep and it's why we look into things. I guess we're moving on. No one else, right? We're moving on to closing of citizen remarks. Do I have a motion?
Alvarez.
Do I have a second?
Olivo.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
No executive tonight.
Okay, there's no executive session tonight. That's a good thing. Let's see here. I want to make sure I don't get lost. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Wow, we wanted to stay here. A motion to adjourn?
Cruz.
Motion Idalia.
A second?
Cruz.
All in favor?
Aye.
Everyone have a blessed night.
Have a good night, everyone.